I think this is important conversations that are starting and need to continue. And there's the risk now that things fade off because already we're into it for a while, and it's obviously more concentrated in America, but I think it's just as relevant here. Especially with our history. So I'd love to know if there is a time, this is the specific question that I've got, is there a time in recent memory where you've been reminded of your race?
Jeez, man, a lot, man. A lot. There's a lot. And because I'm such a bubbly, happy person, I'm always with mates, and you can never tell. My girlfriend is white, and she can't tell, times when I'm like, sheesh, it matters now that I'm black. Jeepers, the whole time it's not her that does it. I'm just saying that she doesn't know the moments when I feel like I'm black here, So, yeah, man, it happens a lot. I mean, some of my memories was when I was in PE, walking with a white girl and somebody shouting at us. I can remember being at a spur in Port Elizabeth, sitting with a girl. We're having Wacky Wednesday or whatever. It was tears. And a couple with their kids, 2 kids, looking at us in disgust and actually saying, cease. And then I got up to the table, talked to them like, what's going on? What do you do? And just turns out that I'm with a white girl and they don't like that. And, we've had some run-ins like that in church work as well. Something that was very close to my heart, the place where I thought, this is God, this is where we do God's work, where some church members don't want to hear you because you're black. They actually don't think your opinion matters. What's he going to teach us? He's a township boy. Doesn't get us. Some people in the church treating you like you are their garden person, and watching them treat the cleaners, the helpers in the church and the garden people in the church, yet they treat me better because maybe I share, a meeting table with them. That kind of stuff made me realize you are black, man. It's like, when you have an opinion about politics, about social issues and all of that, then you start feeling like maybe I'm being black here because white people in church and out of church don't want to talk about these issues. It's too uncomfortable for them to do that. And because they are leaders over you, they can use that power to shut it down right then and then. Hey, man, we don't do politics here. And to be serious about it to a point where you feel like in church, if I were to push for this to happen, I could be fired and lose my job. And losing my job means I don't have any income. They didn't feel like that. I felt that way. I was like, I can't push for certain things here. How the heck does it happen that I can afford a car in a job for the first year when somebody who's been doing the gardens and washing the dishes or walking around this church can't even afford a scooter? How the heck does that happen in a church that's loving? You explained that to me, and that's when you feel I'm black here. When you can have a conversation quickly with a white friend who just does the same job as you somewhere else and they're getting paid so much money. And then, you had to ask how much you'd be paid if you did the same thing. And they start you right under 10,000 rand. In the 21st century, people get away with this stuff. They don't know, even people in church, they don't know that they're doing these things. Being in a church where I pick up the phone and somebody speaking to me on the other side is very nice and polite, and it's good until they have to come to my office and meet with me in the church. And they come, then they realize, I was talking to a black guy, and now they all tense up. Like, I didn't realize I was talking to you. Hearing comments like, you sound white. And he's like, that's when you realize, these people have just realized that you're black. So that stuff is not good. I just realized that I've learned to get used to it. That's why I can laugh and giggle about it now. I've just learned. And I think I'm not special. Every black person has just had to. All our maids and garden workers and all of that, they've just had to learn to just get used to it. It's a normal. So when you see George Floyd thing happening, we're like, yep, we know. No black person is surprised. Like people who are acting surprised on social media, it's like shameful, because obviously they're trying to make I don't know, maybe subconsciously they're trying to position themselves in a place where they can relate with other white people. But some of us, we relate with white people, but we don't have to pretend that this is new. Nothing new about that. We know it. Growing up in Soweto, we saw police vans bombarding our township and taking our uncles and stuff and putting them in the back. Michael, that was life. It was part of it. It was part of Soweto experience. My house getting trashed because they're looking for my dad. Normal. It was okay for them to do that. So I've learned to get used to it. You know, when you can sit with somebody and you make a post on Facebook about something, and then back here at home, they act all bummed out. You know, there's like a passive aggressiveness because they know your opinion about the world out there. So now here, you're sitting with them at a bar and you can see something they don't like. And when you look at it, you go, oh, it happened on that day because I made that post saying my opinion about how people should be treated. Since when does calling for people to love each other despite of their color being a crime? Why does that piss people off so much? That you can say to me, Ambu, you gotta love people despite their race. And I'll just get triggered. Why is it such a trigger? So anyway, I'm going into that. I don't want to go that far in it.
Okay. Yeah, but it's, how do we make that unnormal? You know, how do we make it so people don't have to get used to it in a sense? You know, because that's obviously not a solve. And you know, so I think my two follow-up questions on that, they kind of tie together. One, is there a time that you can think of? You know, I really hope there is, but is there a time you can think of where you've seen someone get it right, or seen a people group get it right, and really do well to be anti-racist in the greatest sense of the word, you know? Was there an experience you can point to like that? And then is there, you know, what do you see the future? Like, what is the ideal future? How do we get it right more often in the future? You know, how do we make this unnormal so people don't just have to get used to it?
Look, history shows us that stuff. History literally just shows us. A whole bunch of white people have inherited this idea that, you know, if it's got nothing to do with you, you don't have to worry or bother about it. That's it. I'm telling you from what I know, racism stuff, apartheid, even in America, has been happening for years, 400 years plus, been happening. Black people have just learned to get used to it. But white people have also just learned to get used to going, let the people who deal with that shit deal with that shit. You know, so they don't have to worry about this stuff. It happened even in South Africa that majority of white people knew it was an injustice, but they did nothing about it. Much as like now we would look at countries around the world that are poor and we go, yo, that sucks. And then we carry on and do our thing. Like nothing just rocked our hearts for the last half an hour, you know? So we've inherited that. And there are other things that we've inherited though as well. History has taught us about people like Bears Nordier, the Bali who would be in a church and the Dutch Reformed who would pay for black students to go into school and be a reformed person and stand up for black people in his church and say, no, not in the voice of the church shall we allow this stuff. You know, those kind of people. Comrade Joe Slovo, who led the South African Communist Party before his death, died and buried in Soweto. His grave is in Soweto, about 3 kilometers from my house. His grave is there. Joe Slovo said, I will join the political parties, the system itself, and be with the black people and understand them enough to fight with them within the ranks. Those type of people are the ones that I've thought to myself, they kind of get it. They are there and they're going, it's not enough to just be on this side of the fence and go, that's not okay, but you know, I'm fine. I don't have to, let me not get too involved with that stuff. And church has been a big player in that sort of system. It allows people to just disconnect and be comfortable with their disconnect. Church does that. I've been in church, I've worked in township church and suburban church. I know that is some of the things, is one big thing that they do. One of my interviews around the churches was, am I political? Pretty much that person was saying to me, as a church, we are disconnected to issues and we are happy with that. We don't want to have anyone here rock this boat because the boat has become financially comfortable. So everybody is good with that stuff. And I'm like, nope. The people that I've seen, there's some people I've also admired that that are a good voice, the white people that are a good voice for Black people. They're on social media saying, no, I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm going to use my social media to be the white guy that says, no, not under my watch. No, I'm going to speak to people. And they call up meetings where they intentionally have a whole bunch of Black people and some white people where they can talk about issues and help each other understand one another, understand these issues as they are. And they do them very well. It's happening in Cape Town. A guy called Brett is doing it. In Johannesburg, a guy called Graham was doing it, you know, but a majority are just sitting down going, not this thing again. When people protest, these guys, they just, you know, they get called savages or just called, you know, all these kind of things. And yet they're going to get to enjoy the freedoms that come because of those people going to the streets. And how do you make sense of that?